Imagine you are the most powerful man on the continent. You defeated the British Empire, you united the 13 colonies, and you are the living symbol of freedom. No bullet on the battlefield could take you down. But then, on a freezing winter night in 1799, the real enemy arrived. It didn't carry a musket. It didn't wear a red coat uniform. This enemy held a tiny surgical blade and walked into your bedroom under the guise of a healer. In less than 12 hours, the man known as the father of the nation was drained of nearly half the blood in his body, not by an assassin, but by the best doctors of his time. Today, we are stepping into the bedroom at Mount Vernon on December 14th, 1799, to witness one of the most gruesome medical tragedies in history, a place where the line between curing and torture was completely erased. Welcome to the dark side of history. Before we dive into the details of that fateful night, you need to understand the why. Why did the most educated men of the 18th century believe that slicing open veins was a brilliant idea? The answer lies in two words: humoral pathology. At that time, modern medicine as we know it did not exist. There were no antibiotics, no concept of bacteria or viruses. Doctors believed in the teachings of Hippocrates and Galen from ancient Greece. They believed the human body was ruled by four fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Illness was simply an imbalance of these fluids. And in 18th century America, a new doctrine was rising, known as heroic medicine, championed by the famous Dr. Benjamin Rush. The name sounds noble, but the reality was brutal. The logic of heroic medicine was this: the more severe the illness, the more aggressive the treatment must be to shock the body back to health. If a patient was inflamed or feverish, it meant the blood was boiling and vascular pressure was too high. The only solution: open the valve, drain the blood to cool down the heat, and literally drag the sickness out of the body. That is our setting. December 14th, 1799. George Washington, 67 years old, wakes up in the middle of the night. He is struggling to breathe. His throat is raw and agonizing. The booming voice of the president is reduced to a broken wheeze. Current medical documents, based on Dr. Morin's 1989 analysis, suggest he was suffering from acute epiglottitis. A massive swelling was compressing his windpipe, strangling the life out of him inch by inch. Washington needed oxygen, but what he got was the blade. The first person to hold the blade wasn't a doctor, it was George Rawlins, the estate overseer. Washington, despite suffocating, was a firm believer in this procedure. According to the diary of Tobias Lear, Washington's personal secretary who witnessed the entire event, Washington rolled up his sleeve. Rawlins, his hands trembling before his great master, sliced into the vein of his arm. The crimson stream began to flow, about 12 to 14 ounces, nearly half a litre. But Washington wasn't satisfied. He looked at the flow and whispered, "Don't be afraid. Take more." The blood flowed out, but the struggle to breathe didn't stop. His throat remained as swollen as before. Around 9:30 a.m., Washington's personal physician and close friend, Dr. James Craik, arrived. Instead of realizing the patient was weakening from blood loss, Dr. Craik concluded, "We need to draw more." This time, 18 ounces, over half a litre, were taken. But heroic medicine wasn't just about bloodletting. The doctors began applying torture methods. Adjunctive therapies. They used cantharides. This is a powder made from crushed toxic blister beetles. They applied this powder directly to Washington's throat. The goal? To cause a chemical burn, creating blisters in the hope of drawing the inflammation from the inside out to the skin. Imagine this. You can't breathe, you've just lost a litre of blood, and now your throat is being chemically burned by acid from crushed bugs. It didn't stop there. They forced him to swallow calomel, mercury, and tartar emetic, antimony. These were highly toxic substances used to induce violent vomiting and diarrhea. Washington's body began to convulse, retching uncontrollably, becoming severely dehydrated. By 11 a.m., Dr. Craik performed the third bleeding, another 18 ounces. In total, He had lost over 1.5 litres of blood in just one morning. By this time, 2 other doctors had arrived to assist, Dr. Gustavus Brown and a young physician named Dr. Elisha Cullen Dick. Here a glimmer of hope appeared. The young Dr. Elisha Dick, who possessed a more modern mindset, proposed a bold method, tracheotomy. He wanted to make a small incision in Washington's throat, right below the blockage, to bypass the swelling and get air directly into the lungs. A genius idea that could have saved the president's life instantly. But Dr. Craik and Dr. Brown shot it down. They argued that a tracheotomy was too barbaric, too new, and too risky. They chose to return to the conservative and safest method they knew. Yes, you guessed it. More blood had to be spilled. This was the deciding moment. Around 3:00 p.m., Dr. Brown and Dr. Craik decided to execute the final measure. This time, they didn't take a small bowl. They took 32 ounces of blood in a single go. That is nearly a litre of blood. Washington's body, once large and robust, now collapsed completely. He went into hypovolemic shock. His skin turned a ghastly grey. His limbs were ice cold. His pulse was rapid but weak, like a fragile thread. In total, within 12 hours, they had removed 80 to 82 ounces of blood. That is equivalent to 2.3 to 2.5 litres. To give you some perspective, an adult male has about 5 litres of blood. The doctors had drained 40% to 50% of the blood in Washington's body. In modern medical terms, this is called exsanguination, death by blood loss. Let's pause for a moment to understand what George Washington was experiencing. There was no anesthesia, no painkillers. He was fully conscious for almost the entire process. Imagine the sensation of suffocation. It's like someone is strangling you, or you are drowning on dry land. Every breath is a battle for survival. Your lungs scream for oxygen, but the airway is sealed shut. Add to that the stinging pain from the chemical burns on your neck, the cramping in your stomach from the emetics, and the cold, the bone-deep cold, as your life force is slowly drained through your arm. But the most terrifying part was his resignation. Washington was a soldier. He didn't scream. He checked the blood bowl. He even thanked the doctors for their attentive care. By late afternoon, he knew he wouldn't make it. He called Tobias Lear over, whispering final instructions regarding his will and funeral. He said, "I am just going. Have me decently buried, and do not let my body be put into the vault in less than 3 days after I am dead." Even in his dying moments, he was afraid of being buried alive, a common fear of that era. Between 10 true and 11 ice p.m. on December 14th, George Washington took his final breath. The official medical report by Dr. Craik and Dr. Brown, published in the Times of Alexandria in 1800, described his death as caused by synanche trachealis, inflammation of the trachea. They insisted they had done everything humanly possible, but history and modern science see it differently. According to analyses by Dr. Morenz in the New England Journal of Medicine and Dr. Cheetham in the American Surgeon, the cause of death was a combination of acute respiratory infection and hypovolemic shock due to massive blood loss. To put it bluntly, the disease attacked him, but the treatment finished him off. Washington's death was not meaningless. It became a prime example of the failure of heroic medicine. It took decades, thanks to the statistical research of Pierre Louis and the advent of germ theory, for humanity to realize that bloodletting was not only useless, but lethal for infections. George Washington survived smallpox, dysentery, malaria, and thousands of British bullets. He was a man who could not be killed on the battlefield, but in the end, he fell right in his own warm bed by the hands of his friends, the healers who believed they were saving his life. It is a terrifying story about the limits of human knowledge. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't evil, but ignorance disguised as science. What do you think about the death of George Washington? If young Dr. Elisha Dick had been allowed to perform the tracheotomy, would American history have changed? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next dark file. Sleep well, if you can.